Hello, welcome back to Sterling Armory Sword Talk. This is episode, I believe it's 11. It's 10 or 11. I can't remember which one it was. But today we have a good sword talk ahead. We have another special guest, which I'm super thankful for. And we have some good topics for today. So I'm not sure if this is going to post before or after Combat Con, but a lot of the topic today is going to be from the maker side. And then we're cramming to get everything ready for Combat Con. So that's really driving the topic for today. So if you're new to the channel and if you're new to this series, Sword Talk is basically a podcast where all of us from Sterling Armory get together, we drink some drinks, and talk everything swords from all sides, from Hema stuff to stage combat stuff to movies, films, anything sword related. We talk about. And today is going to be from the maker side. So for those of you guys who are makers out there, hopefully this is a good one for you guys. So let's bring everybody on. So we have, guys want to introduce yourselves real quick?
No.
And then we'll bring on our...
Hell no.
So real quick, I'm Thomas. As we've done this many times before, I've been gone the last few weeks. I just finished... I don't want to say finished, but I just moved up to Illinois, so I've been gone for a little bit. By the time this is filmed, hopefully I will have changed into actually having my own home again. But there's the hope and dreams. And as far as if you ever need to find me, you can always just find me on the Sterling Armory page on Facebook, or you can contact Chris and he will shovel it over to me.
Yes, awesome. And Josh?
Hey, I'm Josh, Warbear. You can find me on Instagram at Dark Archer Design with underscores between the letters, of course, or words, of course. Facebook, Joshua Von Warbear. I will be switching my Instagram over to Warbear Armory pretty soon. I was going to say you could find me on my website at darkarcherdesign.com, but I don't know if that's true anymore. I've been getting a lot of notices from Weebly saying my payment's expired, but I don't know if that's true, or if they're a new breed of hacker that's just trying to get my credit information. It's just easier to let the website expire than it is to get my identity stolen. So
all those
there's where you can find me.
Yeah, all those links will be below. Oh, and I'm Chris from Sterling Armory, so you can find me on Sterling Armory on Facebook or Instagram, and then obviously here if you're here. And we have a great special guest today, so let's bring him on. So Matt Stagmer. A lot of you guys know this, but a lot of the viewers may not. Sterling Armory would not exist if it wasn't for Matt helping me out when I was a young, crappy sword maker. So, so Matt, you probably don't need to, but you want to introduce yourself? And
yeah, sure. Matt Stagmer, currently of That Works YouTube channel, youtube.com/thatworks, and we also make custom weaponry. You guys who are really into swords might know me from my time that I spent at Baltimore Knife and Sword, where over those 22 years I've made, I don't know, I stopped counting at about 100,000 bladed pieces, no lie. So somewhere around that. But yeah, it's been great. I've been a friend of Chris, and I've known Josh for a while, and it's really been cool. Like he said, I don't feel like I've necessarily mentored them, but it's been really awesome to watch both of those guys grow as makers in their sword work, their leather work, everything. And they were doing things quicker than I progressed, and it's just been really cool to have been around to see you guys progress into what you guys are now. You guys are making really, really nice pieces.
Thanks. Yeah, I remember.
I don't know if it's fair to say that you've not mentored me. I can't tell you how many times I've watched your YouTube videos on repeat to like not only inspire to be like, how the shit did he get around that? Okay, that's awesome. Yeah,
right.
Well, I've always said sword making is probably 10% creativity and 90% be able to fix your mess ups. Like honestly, problem solving is where it's at.
Yeah.
So there's always problems. You get inspired with a certain guard or pommel on a blade, and then you got to figure out how to make everything work together. So that's all part of problem solving to me.
Yeah, I remember the first time. So I was making blades for myself, but then I was like, I kind of want to start a booth, and I didn't quite know how to do it. And Matt was like, hey, why don't you just come out with us at this pirate show that was here in Clearwater.
Yeah.
And that was my first official booth, and I just fell in love with it. So
Yeah, man.
yeah, it was awesome.
Back when you did all your handles out of pipe.
I know I was using a pipe for handle stuff. Strong as hell, but man,
Hey,
when
I
it
was nice to you
rings
about that.
in your hand. You were very nice about it.
That's like, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
new.
That's a
I didn't
choice.
know. I didn't know Matt was out there in Clearwater. I remember that booth because I didn't know you very well, Chris. I just know like we had friends of friends, and I lived in Tampa, and I was at Clearwater Renaissance Fair pushing that giant
No, that was
sea unicorn with
yeah,
kids
The
in it.
pirate fair. Yeah, the pirate
Yeah,
fair.
that's what I was doing there, and I remember
Yeah.
seeing your swords and being like, "Oh, cool swords!" I had no idea anything else.
yeah,
other
that
than
was when I was palling around with Pirates Magazine.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
hilarious.
So before we dive too further, so one thing we do is we talk about our drinks. I'll go first today. So I usually have a bottle of mead on me, but we're hoping to get some mead sponsors at some point. But for
Do it.
now, it's really hot here in Florida, so I have a pink lemonade vodka that is very refreshing and it's cooling me off. So that's what I'm drinking today. Josh, what are you drinking?
I, like many great men before me, are drinking Lambrusco wine accompanied with Red Bull. Bullshit $15 bottle of
I
wine.
love
Yeah. Oh, I need it.
Thomas.
I'm so tired right now.
Oh, really?
So it's difficult for me to find drinks right now. So out of my coffee cup, I am drinking a elderberry and lemon vodka with sugar-free mango syrup,
Sounds
and
interesting.
it's a drink.
What the hell? Weird.
You didn't bring any Mr. Pipe with you when you moved?
Like, it's the sugar. I can't drink it right now. I'm trying to stay off sugar stuff again for diet reasons because I'm overweight and need to drop it. But
As we all are.
Good man.
So I found a sugar-free elderberry and lemon vodka and a sugar-free mango syrup, and I was like, "Yeah, it's sugar-free. Who cares what it tastes like?"
Wow.
I won't be able to taste it in like 2
Is it hard
cups
to get?
anyways.
So we talked about this off air, but obviously we haven't talked about it on air yet. So Thomas has moved from Florida up to Illinois. Is it hard to get alcohol up there?
Oh, absolutely not. I walk into Walmart and they got a full
okay.
rack of hard liquor.
Yeah, you said it was hard to get, and I was like, oh,
Nice.
Yeah, I thought it was easy to get up there.
No, just sugar-free stuff. Like it's sugar-free is not where like alcohol is not where you go for sugar-free stuff.
That's true. Yeah, especially the fruity stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Matt, what are you drinking?
Oh, I'm boring. I'm drinking coffee, but it's a really cool mug. So
It is really cool. Nice.
Nice.
I was going to ask you about that.
yeah, it's a Heineken. If you're familiar.
Nice. It's pretty cool.
Ooh.
Yeah,
That is very
sweet.
Red.
So Matt also had a very cool, I guess, thing happen lately. So at Blade Show this year, I'll let you talk about it.
Okay, so
Yeah, I'll just talk about it. I don't want to say
so it's been a long journey of wanting to become a journeyman smith in the American Bladesmithing Society, and then eventually end up as a master smith. So if you take it all the way back to the year we had our first hammer in at Fire and Brimstone, when I was still at Baltimore Raven Sword, I signed up for the ABS and I accidentally let my payment lapse. You have to be a member for 3 consecutive years before you can test for journeyman smith. And I let it lapse and I got angry and I just never did it again. Just one of those things. And I kind of made fun of the whole thing back then because I was cocky and young, I guess, and I just didn't know any better. And I was making blunt swords and I could make them very fast. So I didn't really understand people who took so long to make a little knife when I'm making giant swords. When I'm making, a dozen every day. Literally, that's the output we were doing at Baltimore Raven Sword. So I didn't have the understanding or the appreciation of it until I really came out on my own and started my own business that works and started my own YouTube channel. And it just became this thing where I wanted a new challenge in life, and I wanted to be respected by not just fans, if you will, of mine. I wanted to be respected by peers and other mastersmiths. So it's a journey that I decided to go down, and I wanted to test 3 years ago. COVID hit, and then it was 2. Then it was, last year I was going to, but I took some sponsored video stuff that I did, and I made excuses. So this year I actually held myself to it. I announced it on my Instagram and then on my YouTube channel, and maybe I figured once I announced it publicly, I'd have to hold myself accountable,
Yeah.
and go through it. So those who aren't familiar, basically, there's 2 steps to getting your Journeyman Smith certification. The first is you make a performance test knife. I have videos of all this on the YouTube channel if you guys want to go
I've been
through it.
following it. Yeah.
But the first one was a performance test knife. These are all forged. Everything has to be forged. I used ADCRV2 for my material. If you're familiar with ADCRV, I honestly think it's the best blade steel out there because it's a steel that's actually made for blades instead of just one that actually just happens to work for blades. It's made for it. I forged my thing. It's basically a chopper. This can be ugly. They're not going to judge you on how it's going to look. However, I'm not going to make an ugly piece. So I did like a nice stabilized wood handle. So the first thing you do is after you make this, you have to sharpen the hell out of it. The first thing you do is you chop through a 2x4 twice, all the way through twice. How many? Not times. So you have to keep chopping. After that, it has to still be able to shave. Like you have to be able to shave with the edge on your arm and still pull off hair. And then it can't have any edge rolling, no chips, no nothing. Then you chop a 1-inch rope, free hanging rope. So it's just hanging from a rafter. And if you pass both of those, then you have to clamp your blade in a vise and bend it 90 degrees without it breaking. Which honestly, if you're a sword maker, that's not really all that frightening. Although the sharp edge with that becomes kind of frightening. If you're making a blunt sword or just slightly blunt sword, you've seen people do the tip to pommel test. Even if it can take a set, it just can't snap. So if you pass that, you have to do that all under the supervision of a mastersmith. I did mine with Jay Hendrickson, who is one of the founders of the ABS and was the president of the ABS for a long time. And he's a local guy here. And I did that at the Bill Moran Foundation, who is the founder of the ABS, kind of the grandfather of modern knife making. So that was a real honor to be able to do it at his workshop. And I passed that. After you pass that, you make 5 knives up to a very high standard, and you present them at Blade Show, which is in Atlanta, Georgia, to be juried and judged by a group of 7 mastersmiths. And they give you, each mastersmith has little cards. They go up, they look at all your knives, they write pass or fail, give you a little notes if they have any notes they want to give you, and they put it down. The next mastersmith does it, and if you pass, you pass. Then you have to wait a couple years, and you can do it all over again at a much higher critique level to be a mastersmith. So I went to Atlanta this year, and I presented my 5 knives, and I did indeed pass. So
Yay.
It was a lot.
So
It was a lot.
So is it always at Blade Show Atlanta, or did they move it sometimes?
The ICCE show that was in Chicago for a while was the other place you could do it, and I think they either stopped testing or that show might just be shut down in general. I'm not sure. And I think they're gonna start. I don't know. I honestly haven't. I've never been there, but I've heard good things about it. I know that was a cool show for some Japanese stuff too.
Right. Yeah.
They did it back-to-back weekends with the big Japanese sword show that was in Chicago. But I think now that they're doing Blade Show West and now they're doing a Blade Show Texas, I think they're going to offer another second time. But right now it's just Blade Show in Atlanta once a year.
Okay. Yeah. And what were the? We talked a little bit offline, but what were the big surprises going from, sword making? I think you're not worried about the tiny details, right? Whereas I think in the ABS stuff, it really, dives into those, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I'm not a judge. I'm not a mastersmith, but from what I've heard and talked to, I'm friends with quite a few mastersmiths or people that are close to, the judging process. Basically, your journeyman smith, you have to get your 5 knives at least 85 to maybe low, maybe 90% perfect. And by that, I mean everything perfect. Zero you can't, it has to look as if the guard and the blade are literally one piece, seamless. There can't be any little black line around the shoulder of your blade. That's one of the main things. Your plunge lines where your edge comes in have to be absolutely perfect. where your handle meets the guard has to be absolutely perfect. And then one of the things that at least seems like a no-brainer for a lot of knife makers, but for me is like something I really had to learn, and I learned how to do it with each knife as I was going. I really hadn't made knives to this level. Was they want to see a perfect, absolutely flawless satin finish, all hand sanded. So I'm used to, you guys that know me from BKS time and Man at Arms, you know that I'm used to a 5 horsepower grinder.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we are.
And you do grind, obviously. You're not only hand sanding, but from like 400 grit on, you have to have it perfect. And every scratch line that you create has to be perfect. If there's any waving like this, or if there's a off angle line, or they can see underlying grit, all that stuff will fail you. So
that gives me anxiety.
It does, but I gotta tell you, once you do it for the first time, like the level of like, holy shit, I did this. I hope we're past that 5-minute mark. We are.
Yeah, we are.
I did this, and it also gives you an appreciation for like what it could have been close to, like not quite as bad, trying to polish something back in the day. So yeah, it's pretty neat. And once I did my first blade, here's a little thing that I said like 6 years ago working at BKS. I laughed at people who spent all the time hand sanding. I was like, I can achieve the same finish. I can fool people. You know what I mean? This process made me learn that there is no fooling. And if you are fooling, why are you doing this? So like, do it the right way. But I really, I knew I thought for sure I would never hand sand a blade. But then I 100,000% never thought I would hand sand guards. And I'm now hand sanding guards. It doesn't take nearly as long as you think, and you can achieve little nooks and crannies and stuff, and like real sharp transitions that you just wouldn't believe. You just make yourself a little sanding stick. It's whatever shape you need, little hand sandpaper, and go. So it's definitely a different perspective. And let me tell you, sword people, since most of you guys are sword guys.
Yeah, we're all sword guys.
Right.
The very first sword that I ever hand sanded was I think it was the year Chris was at Blade Show, when I had my Mosaic Damascus Gladius. Did you see that in person?
I did, yeah.
That was my very first. Actually, I made 2 of those, so my first and second blade. There's something about, even if you like go up to like 800 grit on a sander, if you just, whatever grit you stop with at a sander, drop back 1 to do your hand sanding. So if you like, say you go to 600 on a sander, drop back to 400 for your hand sanding. Even just some light strokes on a blade, if you make like a nice high iron sword, it turns it from a machine looking piece to like a really handmade piece, and you could do that in like 10 minutes. It's really, I mean, you've probably all had to use Scotch-Brite pads on your blades, like if you get a little rust here and there, and just even that gives you a level of all of a sudden hand finish that that you don't get off a sander. So it is neat, because with the hand sanding, say you have a diamond ground sword, you're obviously, that peak of your diamond is going to get a little more shiny than everything else, and your edges. So like, it just gives this kind of flow from shiny to satin to shiny again. I can't really explain it until you've done it, that it just, a hand sanded sword blade is so sexy.
Yeah, I think we've all done that. So I usually finish all my blades, hand green scrubbing them. But that's a bit lower grit, than what is green scrubbing.
But you kind of get it,
Yeah. And I mean, our goal here is, so we like doing stuff kind of like, I haven't forged anything in forever. In fact, last time I forged something was a spearhead back, I don't know, it was probably 10 years ago or more. So, all our stuff, we're on the grinder, and but we still want to make sure it doesn't look machined.
Yeah.
And that's one of our goals is to, even though you're making something on the machine, you want to make sure it doesn't look like it was made on the machine, right? So, like I love Angus Trim stuff, and I actually have a piece right there. But he leaves it machine looked, and it's some people like it, some people don't. And our goal is to try to make it look as original as you can get. So actually, on that note, I was kind of, has anyone ever tried to do it with swords? The JS? I'm guessing not, right? It's mostly knives.
So in your set, you It's very specific that you can't
Is
make
it?
a sword, and it's not
okay.
really because they don't like swords or don't believe in it, but
Right.
the judges are not sword makers, so you really don't want to put something in front of them that they're not going to understand.
Gotcha.
And there's
Yeah.
very different knife. Like I've said this since I was young, but I still believe it, and even now I believe it even more. Swords are not big knives.
Right.
Swords are swords and knives are knives. Yes, they both have sharp edges, but even the edges are super different.
Right.
So you don't really want to put something in front of the JS judges that they're not going to understand. And you don't want to show off. You want to stay humble. Most of the JS pieces are very plain. You're not there to show your detail work. They very much discourage things like file work. They want to see that you're a bare bones, know how to do the process. And then the master smith is where you get to start showing off.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's basically where that whole
So I know
thing comes
you were debating on doing that Flamberge,
the Flamberge
dagger.
dagger. Yeah.
I guess you didn't do
and
that, huh?
I didn't. No. I by the time it got to where I was going to start choosing if I was going to finish that out, I had gained a different perspective. My perspective on this whole thing changed every probably 2 or 3 days. And at the end, I'd worked so hard and I gained so much respect for the people who had come before me that I didn't want to seem like a show off. I want to show that I was humbling myself, putting myself right on the same playing field as, the 19-year-old guy. I just didn't want to draw attention to myself or anything like that. I just felt like it would be kind of disrespectful. However, the guy who won Best JS Set actually submitted a tomahawk as one of his pieces.
Huh.
And I think that's the most far out thing that's ever been submitted. There's no necessarily there's no real rules against it, but like
they probably know
stretching
knives. Yeah, and it was absolutely phenomenal. If you guys are familiar what a keyhole connection for your handle to your guard is, he did a keyhole that connected his head and that connected the butt cap and it was a functioning pipe hawk. Also, not only did he keyhole everything on and together, but he also drilled holes that lined up all the way through all those pieces. I mean, guys,
Jesus,
out of his mind, awesome. So that was like
so you have to prove that you're a machine. You have to prove that you are robot precise on everything.
It does feel that way and sound that way until you do it and realize
it's more
how
hand
much.
work, right?
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's these.
Oh, that's you. So, do you think your Flamberge dagger would be a good masterpiece later?
So
I know you love doing this. So.
Yeah. So part of being a mastersmith is you have to wait 2 years after you get your journeyman, and then you can go for master. So you have to make a dagger. And that dagger is probably the most scrutinized thing in all of your set, and it has to be Damascus. It has to be perfectly symmetrical in profile, and it has to be perfectly symmetrical in your Damascus pattern. I mean, perfect. Not just this side, but if you flip it over, they have to be right on the money. 300 layers, no less. Can be more. It can be mosaic too, but yeah, so I'm going to do a pretty standard dagger that gets judged on that level, but my plan is to also do a Flamberge, far out, and a much different one than I was planning, to be honest. Much more dainty, maybe even a full main gauche with a pierced plate and stuff. We'll see. Okay. I got a couple years before that comes around, so
right.
Some time to think
that set I will definitely be going above and beyond and not rushing. So if I get it done in 2 years, that's fantastic. If it needs an extra year, then so be it.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to see it. And we do have a main topic we're going to be getting to, but there's a few other things I wanted to talk with Matt about. So again, I know we talked a little bit offline, but I think most of the folks here in Florida and the guys that run the Renfrew circuit, they know you as one of the best sword makers out there. Mm-hmm. And so, we talked a little bit about, if you wanted to go focus on knives or focus on swords, or, I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit, or.
Yeah, sure. I mean, for me, if there was a society or an organization that had very high standards for swords, I would have probably not done the knife making route. There's no bladesmithing title really sword wise unless you go to Japan. and
That's true.
that was kind of not in the cards for me. I highly appreciate Japanese swords and stuff, but I don't necessarily see that as a route that I'm going to go with my career, especially with having Ilya um, work beside me. That's kind of his thing, so I don't really feel the need to go there. So this was the only thing to get like an actual title in bladesmithing, and it's
All right.
doesn't mean I'm not going to make swords anymore. But I'm really glad actually that I didn't take a route of like sword making, because it probably would have not taught me as much. In contrast to my career so far, this has been a huge learning process, and it's not like it's just the last 2 months that I was working on the knife set. It's been probably the last 2 or 3 years that I've learned. I mean, before I moved to my own shop, I never even ground a blade on a platen before. Everything was contact wheel. So learning that over again, I guess I picked it up much faster than most people would have. That's probably to be expected, but that's just one example. Definitely. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I know you mentioned you were a little burned out on swords for a little bit.
Yeah.
And,
So
I was too. What got me back onto it was trips over to Europe and museums and studying a bunch of historical pieces, and that really got my motivation back to
yeah, no,
trying to recreate pieces.
I totally understand that. Like,
Yeah,
going to Seoul again and coming back after I did that in Germany, it was like so refreshing. I actually go back and look through those pictures every once in a while just to reignite the fire a little bit. It's not necessarily that I was like burned out on swords, because since I've been at my own shop, I don't make that many pieces. I make like maybe 5 to 10 swords a year, focusing on higher end stuff. But I just kind of lost. If I didn't get like an order or like a sponsored video or something to make a specific sword, I just kind of like, I don't know. I felt like I lost the creativity to make medieval stuff, and my interest kind of got earlier to like Iron Age and Bronze Age kind of style, and doing kind of like put myself back then, but designing things my own way within like the restrictions of the designs of the Iron Age, and I've just lost the whole fire for medieval swords, and it felt weird because that's all I've ever known. But I'm starting to get it back. Honestly, I was scared I wasn't going to come back, but I'm starting to get it back a little bit here and there. There's some swords that I've had on my mind to make for a long time that I think it's finally time to get cracking on some of that work.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was kind of wondering, like, because one of the things that surprised me studying a lot of the original pieces, especially for the Royal Armories and stuff, is the originals are not at all perfect. Like, they would be really bad today.
No.
And so I was kind of like, from the sword maker's point of view, right? That's where it's very different, right, than a knife maker's point of view. And so I guess I was thinking, like, if you were to make a sword for like a JS thing, like, yeah, they don't really know how to judge it, right? Because you can make an exact replica of an original, and it would fail a test, right? Because it's just
and that's one of those things. Like, you can make reproductions of original like medieval. We're talking European specifically here. European swords.
European, yeah.
But like,
Japanese.
The modern buyer and the modern interpretation of those are not anywhere near what they were, and that's just in visual stuff. Like, we all think of like a modern sword having to have a heat treat of like high 50s or low 60 Rockwell, and that's just not the case. Swords were so much softer than you believe. All they had to do was go through really soft flesh. They didn't need to pass the ABS performance test. So, I think, and I'm okay with the fact that we've put modern sword making in a higher standard than it was. Especially, one thing that we don't ever think about with European swords is the fact that most likely you are never going to hold a European sword that one person made. Right. It was a little shop here making a bunch of guards, making another shop making a bunch of pommels, one shop banging out blades, another shop just refinishing the blades. Most of the time, they weren't even made anywhere near each other. For instance, Germans
The
might
blades.
have bought the blades from Italy, and then the guards from London. You know what I mean? It was just this huge sword trade, and very rare was there like, this is a Chris Fields sword. No, it was
Right.
like, this is a blah 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 armory sword, maybe, and they have marks here and there, but you know, most of the time we're not even finding any maker's marks on the guards and pommels because they weren't made by people that really mattered. And then you'd have the cutler that made things a little fancy, added some gems or some engraving and stuff like that. So it's like modern sword making, as much as we try to approach sword making of old, it's like,
Yeah, it's not the
unless
same.
you have it, yeah, it's not the same, and it's fine. It's just, it's actually, you're making a piece that has more personality probably than theirs did. But yeah,
Right.
it's something we don't always think about.
Yeah,
I'm gonna let my dog in real quick so he
Sure.
starts barking.
Yeah. So actually, that's a good segue to go to our main topic. So our main topic of today is, like I mentioned earlier, we have our Comeback Con coming up, and
Come on, buddy.
so a lot of us we had a lot of stuff happen this year. It's been a busy year, and Combat Con kind of snuck up on us because it's like a month earlier than it usually is, right? So Combat Con's usually in August, and it's in July this year. So we're struggling to get stuff done, and so our topic of today is, what do we do, or how do you change your workflow when you're in a crunch, when you're in a time crunch? And I kind of wanted to bring this topic up because I know what I do, but I was really curious about everybody else this year. Because I really don't know, and especially Matt. So Matt's joining in. So we're going over our main topic, and I was just giving an intro to the main topic here. We have Combat Con coming up, and we're in a crunch. So, how do we change our processes, or what do we do when we're in a time crunch? And this was kind of my topic because I was interested in what the rest of the guys here do, because I know what I do personally. So I guess I'll start with me. So one thing I do is I've learned over the years that, like, if I need to get something done quick, then I have to have it, and it's probably the engineer in me, but I have to have every part of that project mapped out. So I have to sketch what the piece is. I have to sketch what that guard's going to look like. I have to sketch what the handles are going to. I have to lay everything out. Yeah, I know. And as soon as I have it all laid out, I used to 3D model everything, but now I don't have time, so I just sketch it really quick. As long as I know what it is, then I can just boom, 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 and then get it done. And that's actually the mode I'm in right now. So all these right here were all mapped out, or not all, most of them except for my personal one there. They were all mapped out and then done, piece by piece, quickly. And I usually start doing 6 to 7 in parallel. It seems to be my peak for that. So yeah, I was kind of curious what everyone else does. The other thing I do is I try to make similar blades. Like if I'm doing long swords, I will do 7 long swords that are very similar. If I start going back and forth between a long sword and an arming sword, I'll start confusing myself and mess stuff up. So, Josh, do you have anything you do to?
Oh man, I got so much shit that I. So, Combat Con has snuck up on me, I think, worse than everyone, because Evermore is doing their Mythos season, and it's 3 months straight of Renaissance Fair, medium-sized Renaissance Fair every Friday and Saturday. So I was like, no problem. I've got a bunch of stuff. I'm gonna be able to take it easy. And then the first weekend of Evermore's Mythos, I sold out on everything. I sold out like 15 daggers. I sold 4 swords. I sold a ton of leather stuff. And I was just like, this is great. I'm going to go get steak and sushi and spend some money. And I did, because I should. And then I was like, and then the same thing happened the following weekend. And then I went, fuck me.
Don't have anything left.
Not only do I have to now go Sunday through Thursday making replacement stuff for all the stock that I've spent through at Evermore, I have to try and make a backlog to take to Combat Con.
Right.
So it's been, and then for me, you guys were saying you get burnt out, and I used to get burnt out as well. What saved me from getting burnt out is just different sets of skills. If swords burn me out or daggers burn me out, I start leatherworking. If leatherworking and swords burn me out, I start drawing and designing and doing concept sketches and goofing off. If both of those work, I play video games.
Right on.
Very important skill for sure.
Right on.
When I have to do stuff, because we've all been there. And there's two types. There's two types of like in that crunch. There's fuck, I have to get this done. God damn it. And then there's fuck, I have to get this done. Let's burn through this. And usually the difference between that is your soundtrack.
Right. Yeah.
I put on some pretty hardcore, and I say hardcore like it's hardcore for me, stuff that makes me want to move. Music that makes me want to jam. I do that, and sometimes when I get super burnt out and I need a reset, I generally take a shower. I just take a shower break, and I feel that a shower resets me emotionally and mentally and physically, and I'm just like fresh and ready to go. And I'm like, okay, I can approach this a different way. So that's kind of what I go through.
I forgot to mention I do the. Oh, sorry, Matt.
I was gonna say that reset thing. So like back in the Man at Arms days, so we would do like a full day of shooting on camera, and then usually Ilya and myself and maybe some other people, but mostly Ilya and myself would stay really late at night, at least like the last couple days before beauty shots, and we would usually work until we like were just dead, and then we would hop in the car and force ourselves to go to like Outback or like Denny's and grab a crappy steak or a good steak and just like chill out. Like Illy would always look at me and he'd give me those puppy dog eyes. He'd be like, is it steak time? And we would go and we would chill out. And it seems like you feel a little guilty doing it. You know what I mean? Taking that precious hour off, but that precious hour can buy you like 3 or 4. That second wind. If you don't know, like if you just clock out a job at like 5 o'clock at night and go home and you don't work even a side hustle or something at night, I kind of feel bad for you not knowing what that second wind is like. That second wind is like completely different than showing up in the morning. So I mean, there's something to putting a frustrated project down and coming back in the morning with fresh air too. But the second wind kind of thing is really kind of a neat thing. But for me, like, so is it my turn?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
I mean, it can be. Yeah.
So I've had many different kinds of deadlines. So working at Baldwin Knife and Sword for most of my career, for say like the first 18, 19 years of it, was all Renaissance Fair deadlines. And by Renaissance Fair, I mean pretty much every weekend of the year, save for a couple weeks in the winter time, there was at least one, sometimes as many as 4 Renaissance festivals that we were selling swords at every weekend. So we're making between a light week would be like 35, 40 blades. A heavy week could be 150 blades in a week. And that's like, 4 or 5 guys doing that out of a tiny shop.
Right.
And those deadlines of like, to get it to the Ren Fair, you got to ship it out. You'd like to ship it Wednesday, but you might be shipping it next day or on Thursday. Some of the shows opened up at Fridays. So like we didn't necessarily take orders from people like Paul DeBro from Legacy Forge or like Tim from Capricorn Cutlery, many different dealers. We would basically tell them to put wish lists together, and whatever we had in progress, we would try to maybe get some stuff heat treated that we didn't have in progress, but it was like really, we always called it wish list. They would send us a wish list of, as many swords as possible, and we would try to just hit it. So you have kind of like a mentality of this is the list, let's get it done. But as it came down to the wire, sometimes you just had to like realize, even though you might have a piece, 75% of the way done, like, it's just going to be another list next week. So we just carry it through.
Right.
But also the same point, I can't tell you some of the crazy high-end, nice things, not super high-end, but like nice things that I made in the last like 2 or 3 hours of the last minute before we were putting the box together. Even my brother would be like, dude, just don't worry about it. We'll get it next week. And it was almost like I can effing do this. So like, you just push it. Like I made rapier start to finish sometimes in like 2 hours, which is crazy. Now that's for like from a heat treated blank.
You're right.
Sure.
I was going to ask, did you guys have one, like, because you had a couple guys in the shop. Was there one guy doing blades, one guy doing guards, or was everyone doing their
So
own pieces?
mostly for the first 2 or 3 days of the week, I was just doing blades, and if like my elbow or my arms hurt, I would stop and facet like a dozen pommels, or I was doing kind of like towards the end, I was doing the tricky work. So like the stuff that was difficult, blending welds on rapiers was also a thing that I would do almost exclusively because I actually enjoy it, even though people hate it.
Oh yeah, I hate it.
little hand sander work, little file work, like it's something that I could do very, very, very fast. And
I wish Colton was here because Colton, our buddy Colton, who was hoping to be on tonight, but he loves that as well. So.
Yeah, I don't know why
He's
I
also
like
a machine.
I like the challenge of taking, like, say, 3 or 4 pieces on a rapier, put them together, blob on some weld, and there's almost a moment of panic where you spend all this time on these nice pieces, and then you got ugly MIG weld, and then somehow making all those pieces flow together. I actually forgot that I love that until I just said it, but I actually really did enjoy that. And then, like, kind of as a break, I would get to maybe go outside and do a little forging. But for the most part, I was just grinding blades. It was be like me and everybody kind of pitched in a little bit on some of the blade work, but in the most part, it was like make sure you're not in Matt's way. We had 5 big sanders, so as long as you're not in my next grit passage, like some people would help out. And honestly, that was just towards the end. For many of the years I worked at BKS, it was just me and my brother, and maybe like some kind of apprentice level guys that were just hobbyists that would come over here and there. And back then, it was still just as crazy. We made every little piece we possibly can.
Right.
And I kind of had to do a little bit of everything. But if you want to jump through the other kind of deadline we have, which is filming deadlines, that's like a whole nother level of stress because there is no, like you have to finish it.
Right.
And, you signed a contract for a sponsor kind of thing. Man at Arms, like I said, like there were all-nighters, many times all-nighters. Like literally we'd go home and sleep an hour or 2 and come back and go ahead. You had a question? Did
you ever get into a project where you're like at Man at Arms sort of during the videos where you're like, uh-oh, like we're not going to finish this?
Like, two times. The first, both of them weren't my fault, to be perfectly honest. One was the Assassin's Creed. Oh God, I'm gonna forget which wrist blade that was. The one that is like a little crossbow.
Okay.
To make those mechanisms work and stuff, it was like complicated, and Carrie really like kind of was losing his mind a little over that.
Yeah, that's a lot to do in that short period of time.
There was a lot to that. It wasn't just the machining; there was casting. No, so people who aren't familiar with Man at Arms, we would do 6 big builds and 8 filming days with a weekend built in where we didn't film. So 6 builds in 10 days, and that is crazy. Yeah, they were long days. And the other one that got us in trouble was, I can't remember. I think that was the same season, actually, but it was the Predator wrist blades. Almost the only ones that really ever got us in trouble were anything with like mechanical engineering in them, because everything else, almost any one of us could pick up and just make happen. Add some weld, add some fucking metal to it. You know what I mean? The engineering ones, if somebody had a vision and a plan, and we're in this rush mode, unlike Chris, like we wouldn't have blueprints and have things figured out necessarily. We have like a crappy pixelated, from a video game idea of what we're doing. And then we kind of talk about some of these things we would decide to make or like would get asked to make like 1 or 2 days before the film crew showed up. So there was no we're doing these Renaissance Festival giant orders and then immediately filming. And immediately filming. So like, really, that wasn't handled super great. Like we should have had some better ideas, and a lot of times it was like too many cooks in the kitchen thing.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
but almost everything else, you'd be surprised. Like if you saw the Genji from Overwatch, Genji's katana, that sword literally did not exist 1.5 hours before it got beauty shots done. There was zero handle. Carrie didn't figure out how to make the overlay and the green lighting work between the overlay and the blade. It looked like it. We got the camera shots we needed, but there was no guard No, like it's like kind of like a Suba thing. Ilya made the Suba. I roughed out 2 pieces of plastic with the tang slot. He went in and used the milling machine actually to cut all the detail. It's pretty wild to watch him do it. All within like an hour and a half. Same thing with Stormbreaker. We made Thor's axe. When we made Stormbreaker, the handle, there was no handle, no wood handle whatsoever for that whole thing. 20 minutes before Beauty Shot, I grabbed a 4x4, a pine 4x4, I think it was.
Jeez.
And I told the producer's panicking. And I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
I'm going to take this to the sander. We're going to put fresh 24 grit on the sander, and we're just going to freaking go. And I'm going to carve this thing, no problem. He was like, you don't have time. What are we going to do? I just fucking did it. I said, I can't stop for camera. If you want shots of this, you got to grab a cameraman because I'm going to go. And I got that done. So it's just one of those things. I'm glad that part of my life is over. Like I get to make my own deadlines for the most part.
Yeah.
I do all the filming now, and
Yep.
I get to make my own deadlines, and we usually do 1 or 2 builds at a time instead of 6. But even now, I'm gonna sneeze again. Sorry.
Bless you.
Maybe not.
I was waiting for you.
So with deadlines now, you have contracts of like you got to have a rough cut of the video done to get approval from the client. Then it has to go up a certain day. Like right now, we're making a samurai helmet from Naraka Blade Point, and
I saw the preview for that.
making it like as close to how it would have been done. And that's been mostly on Ilya, and it's like I'm kind of supposed to have the rough cut in by like Friday and have it air on like Tuesday. The helmet, like I don't know if you guys are familiar with them, they're actually like highly lacquered. That's actually like some of them were made out of paper and lacquer to build up the thickness on some of those helmets. So we tried to make the top of the helmet super shiny, like glossy, and the paint at the very after like adding little bondos pieces and stuff like that and hands, it just came out looking like crap. So today I like stripped all the paint, and you know what I mean. So we're kind of set back, but once again, we have experience with all the crunch time, so I know we'll get it done. But it is wild putting yourself like that, and just like the JS set thing I just did. I'm sorry if I'm rambling, guys. You can tell.
No. Keep going.
Oh, you're
JS set I just did. Like I literally finished that knife set the day before I got in the car to drive to Atlanta, and I highly encourage anyone that's going to go down that path not to do that. But you most likely will. You most likely will. There were guys the morning. Eventually. There were guys the morning of testing hand sanding their blades outside of the judging room.
Oh wow!
No lie.
I would highly recommend not doing that.
Got a little thumbprint from like TSA checking their bags. Thumbprint on the blade.
Right?
Had to hand sand it. So it's
I would say
is crazy.
Yeah. Do you guys think you work better under pressure? Because I think I do. I think when I have a deadline, I crank out. Oh,
it's funny what Matt said about the wish list. I do the same thing now. Like I used to like be eager to listen to everyone's idea and be like, yeah, I could probably do that. Yeah, let's do it. Now it's like, hey, are you doing a commission? I don't take commissions anymore. Give me a wish list of something you'd like to see, and I might work it into my workflow, or I might already have something like that. Because I feel like the pressure of someone counting on you, or someone texting you every day or week going, hey man, any new progress pics? Though they are in perfect right to do so if you've taken their money, still adds a whole nother like, crap, I got to get that done. I'd rather not have that on me. I'd rather just like, I make what I want. I take as much time as I want. If you want it, you can buy it. If not, I love it. I can still hang on to it.
Yeah. Do you find yourself, do you think you work better? You're right. Yeah. So Josh and I have talked about this a lot in the last year or so, but we stopped taking custom orders because we realized we should just make what we want. And,
that's the move, unless you got like a customer that's like almost a friend that you really like to like make a piece or two a year for.
Usually 90% of my commission.
I've done for sure. Yeah.
Which is cool, but it really is much more satisfying to make your own art and find someone who if it's like Josh said, you might steer your own art and the way that a customer would be. You find out what they're interested in.
Right.
But, But to piggyback on what you said, the question you asked Chris about, like, do you feel like you work better. So I think I have two perspectives on this. One, as a business, like as making money, I feel like the crunch made me more money, but the crunch and the just the concessions you have to make because of a time deadline do definitely hurt you as an artist making your own art. So as a business, I love the crunch because you just get it done, get it out, somebody's gonna buy it. You know what I mean? You're not, if you've made it to this level of making, you're not a crappy craftsman.
Right.
So you're gonna put something decent out, even if you're in crunch. It just might not be as detailed as you want. But it will also hurt you as an artist to concede over and over. It kills a little bit of your soul. So
Absolutely.
It's nice to have some pieces, even if you're like, this is just a little bit for anybody who's thinking about production work in any trade. It's nice to have, or semi-production even, I guess you guys would consider yourself kind of semi-production, is to have those pieces that you bang out. But have a couple projects that you don't allow yourself to say, I'm going to have this done there. And like, have like those be your passion projects, even if they take 2 years before you get to them. Have a couple of those projects going so your soul stays somewhat intact.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I was hoping I actually have one of those going right now. So there's a giant Type 15 in the Met that we made one blade already. I got 2 blades cut and heat treated for it. Mm-hmm. One went to Thomas, so we made Thomas's first because we did the hilt very different for Thomas's.
Right.
But the second one I wanted to exactly recreate that Met piece. And I was hoping to have it done by Combat Con, but I was like, I'm not rushing that one.
Now, are you guys?
I took it off the list.
Are you guys? We haven't really talked sword stuff in a while. Are you guys both doing mostly stage combat stuff still, or are you doing some sharps as well?
Depends on the show. So I'm actually doing more sharps than anything, because most of our customers now are competition cutters in the Hema side of things. Or they just want sharps for backyard cutting. And then, so that's like, I guess first half of the year up to Combat Con and about a month after is mostly sharps. And then after that, I switch gears. I think a lot of us switch gears because Sarasota starts happening, the Sarasota Medieval Fair. Mm-hmm. And then the Gainesville Medieval Fair. We still have a booth at both of those shows. So then I switch gears and do all stage stuff for that, for the sparring blunts and stuff.
And then
I think it's Josh, I don't know, you're doing, have you been to Evermore, Matt, by the way? That park out there in Utah?
I don't
it's like a theme park Renaissance festival. That's the best way described.
Yeah, so Josh, that's year round almost, and Josh used to be one of the lead guys there, and now he's boothing there, so.
Nice.
Yeah, I typically make a ton of blunts just because most of my clientele end up being Hema guys, stage actors, and majority film people that just want to rent out a sword or two that they can go ha ha and then get the money shot and then or have people in the background fighting each other. So that's all mine. So I rarely have to sharpen anything.
And Chris, what are you? Do you have like a set blade material that you're using these days, or do you just kind of mess around and play with different alloys? I'm sorry, I'm taking over the question.
No.
You're taking over this
Welcome to
podcast.
Matt's podcast.
No, that's good. So yeah, we're mainly using 5160 still on everything, only because ADCRV is a little bit more pricey for us to get right now.
5160 is fine as long as you know how to deal with it. The main reason I don't use 5160 and never had is because I don't like to stock any material in the shop that I can't necessarily like stack up and forge weld. 5160 you can forge weld it, but it doesn't really like to be forge welded. So like ADCRV, I make mono steel, but I can also cut it up, stack it with 15 and 20 and make Damascus with it. So that's what the other reason that I don't really mess with. I never have messed with 5160.
Yeah, I love 5160 for a performance cutter, especially.
Cool.
ADCRV probably, maybe about the same, I think. But yeah, I have easy access to it here. And so basically we can get 4-inch bars and get them laser cut pretty quick. Yeah,
Nice.
That's kind of what we're doing. Yeah.
Cool.
And ADC, I wish I could get ADCRV quickly and cheap, but
It's not cheap.
it's not cheap.
No.
So we would have to up our prices a bit. If we went to ADCRV.
It's almost double, I'd say, to 5160, isn't it? Yeah.
I've gotten a couple bars out of McMaster car recently of ADCRV, and
really
they don't carry it in 1/4 inch. They only carried it in 3/16, and I work a lot in 1/4 inch because I like a big blade base. And our local heat treater that I use, they've never worked with ADCRV, I don't think. So they're only able to get it to react to and get it up to like 40 Rockwell. So, you know, I'm just going to switch back to 5160 and 1075.
I wonder. I was gonna say, I wonder if McMaster is actually providing ADCRV too.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I would only trust it from Pennsylvania Steel right now. That's really the only place I would trust it from.
So yeah, and I buy the most expensive. I buy from New Jersey Steel Baron, and it is.
I'm sorry, New Jersey Steel Baron. Yeah, you're right.
But I know already. I get Pennsylvania Steel's where we get our 1045 from for all our hammers we make, forging hammers.
Yeah. I met New Jersey Steel Baron. That's the only place that I know that carries ADCRV consistently.
There's a few other places, but that's the only place I would really trust the specs on the ADCRV to being what it is.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry for the side quest.
No. I mean, that's the other nice thing for 5160 is, McMaster car will carry it, Admiral will carry it, and that's the one steel I haven't had an issue with. Whereas like 6150, I've had issues where we had a whole heat treat batch that just didn't heat treat from Admiral, and it's like, wait a minute, like, is this 6150? So all the work you put into it, then you realize, oh, this isn't the material they said it was.
Damn it, this is mild steel.
I think if I had it all to do over again, I think I would have tried my best to talk my brother out of using 4130 for the base of his stage combat stuff, and I would have said to go with a 1045. Because with the lower or medium carbon steels, I know so much more about 1045 now, and I feel like you could get a better consistency. And if you had to, you could make a 1045 sharp blade perform pretty well. So I like 1045 for blunts these days. If someone ordered one for me, that would be that, because you can still weld to it if you had to. You would just have to make sure you preheat and post-heat those weld areas, and there's a little more to it. But I think 1045 for me is like the most durable like medium carbon thing for like beating on, and ADCRV, like I said, is my favorite for that. But
that was the other nice thing with 5160 is our local heat treater here. We used to be Product Metallurgical, and still is here locally, but they're most of their business is heat treating leaf springs, which is 5160.
Are they salt bathing it for you? Are you doing?
No, they do. No? So no, they couldn't afford that down here. So in Florida, salt baths just do not. They can't find a building where the building doesn't rot out in a month.
Yeah.
So it's an oil controlled bath, and so we do have to do a lot of fixturing for warps and stuff.
That's good to learn though.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people, like, just because of like kind of my public persona, like I get so many messages of people asking me how to do this, how to fix that, and more often than not so much these days, but earlier on in Man at Arms days was panic messages about warpage, like after heat treated and then grinding afterwards and getting warps and blades, and they're like, oh, it's ruined. What do I do? I was like, fixture it.
Yeah.
Add a little heat. I don't know what you made it out of, like.
Right.
But it's also like almost like it's scary to guide someone through that, because once you've done it, it's not difficult, but you also know how many things could go wrong with it. You know what I mean? It's like, how do you explain somebody to take, I don't know if you're fixturing in a kiln, but you can do that, or you can be very gentle and use a torch to get like, your low 400 degrees to it.
Both.
So like it's an art to that, but it seems so easy. But like trying to coach somebody who doesn't know, they can ruin their blade so fast, and you almost be nicer to live with a warp. But
yeah. And there's a couple times where I've had a couple warps that I could not get out until I started grinding on the blade and doing a pretty drastic distal taper on it. and then the warp would be near the end, so you can get the warp out. Once you get it thin theneugh, then you can just flex the heck out of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's 5160 just at least down here, because there's a big spring industry down here for heat treat, so they know the steel really well.
Good.
You can give them your Rockwell range, and they can hit it every time. 80 CRB is technically 5180, right? Or 6180, I think it is. If you were to look at the ANSI number for it.
I have no idea. It's basically 1080 with vanadium.
Right. So yeah, 6180 is what it would be.
Yeah.
And so I first showed it to my heat treaters here because I was interested in it, and they were like, "We don't know," but they do provide the heat treat schedule for it.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, just follow this.
It's really pretty darn simple, and
right.
I mean, you can get it. You can get a 70 Rockwell freaking blade on it. You don't want one, but you can. I did it on accident.
Shatters
that,
like glass.
literally off the charts, and tempered it, and it would have been fine had I not overheated it at the very last second using a Scotch-Brite wheel on a much overpowered grinder. So
5 horsepower grinder.
Yeah. I overheated it and just literally like ping, a little ping on the edge, but it was pretty neat. But 80 CRV I've learned so much about, and we could talk about heat treating probably on another podcast. But,
yeah, right.
Yeah,
that'll be a different topic,
it's just the heat treat. It's all about the heat treat, really.
Yeah, I've done 2 blades out of 80 CRV, and one was like a short arming sword because I was just playing with it, and then I did a long sword. I did it as a blunt, and I really wish I would have done it as a sharp, because that steel is really good for sharps. So, but yeah,
Chris,
I haven't done it.
Have we ever done a collab? Have I ever sent you a blade that you mounted, or vice versa, or something? I don't think we have.
I don't think we have. I know we talked about it years ago.
We should probably do that sometime soon.
Years ago. Yeah.
I got a lot of blades that sitting around that I just never feel like getting back to.
Yeah. Oh, I hear you.
I'll send you one.
Yeah, so we have. I also wish Colton. So I was hoping Colton was going to be on because I'm kind of curious because he comes from that machining background, and I know they get hit with our main topic here. Where he gets hit with deadlines quick. So
yeah.
I'm
what about you, Thomas? What about your deadlines?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Thomas.
No, it's fine. I'm okay sitting here listening. Honest truth, it's okay that I'm sitting here listening because the honest truth is, like Chris said, I've only been doing this about 4 or 5 years, and this really is. I am more of the hobbyist of it than anything else. I purposely don't do I'm the same as everyone else. I don't do commissions. I just make for my friends, and then I'm like, I feel like making this, so I'm going to make this kind of a blade. That's one of the things. Like anytime that I really want to do it, I just go to Chris and say, "Hey, this is what I want to do." Just kind of point me in the right direction, and I'll break a few things along the way. But as far as like when I am making stuff and there is a deadline, it's just committing to it. I try not to overthink it, but I've definitely done that too. I'm definitely not Chris though. Like he'll tell you, like I've drawn things, they look like 2
like, oh, just sketch it out. He's like, no,
that's good, man. It's up here. I got an idea. I can't tell you how many times that it's just been like, I have a basic idea. I'm just going to start going for it, and it's either going to look like what I want, or I'm going to change my mind halfway through.
Same here, brother.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think. So the 2 blades that I can think of that were on a crunch that you did were the Executioner blade that you did, which was awesome. Mm-hmm. And then the big one that we just finished because you were on time crunch to get that done.
Yep, I had to get that one. We did that one not even 2 weeks with our with a couple hours here and there, just so I could have it ready for Bay Area to fight with.
How are you guys working together when you're?
So I actually just moved.
Oh, you just moved
like 3 weeks ago. So Josh talking about, I may not be going to Combat Con because of it, because I just haven't had a chance to really set up my shop. Just yet. The place I'm currently staying doesn't have power in his outdoor shed, so it's really great we're talking about all the hand sanding because I may be doing that for start to finish, just doing it all by hand.
Run an extension cord from the house to the shop.
That's what I'm gonna be doing actually.
16 out the splitter.
That's how we do still work together even though we're states apart. So what we do is like sometimes I'll make blades, I'll ship blades to Josh. Josh will help them up, or vice versa. And then now that Thomas is in Illinois, we'll probably do the same. And also, So we have laser cutters and heat treaters here in Tampa. We have them in Utah, and hopefully we'll find some sets in Illinois.
Yeah.
And so like when we have a job that we need to do, we'll say, okay, who can hit this first?
And a
like
little satellite thing going on. I like it.
All right.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I mean, lately Utah has been able to turn stuff around quicker. So, like my last laser cut batch and heat treat batch came out of Utah, and then they shipped.
That's because I don't have a job, so I can just.
He just drives up and
Chris is like, "Hey, I'm having materials sent to you," and I just grab it. I drive 2 miles down the road, drop it off at the laser cutters, wait a week or whenever, go back, pick it up, drop it off at the heat treaters, go pick it up, have it shipped out.
I got a question for, I guess all three of you, but I guess this is mainly towards Chris. One of the things that I always found kind of fascinating, and maybe it was partly like my brother Carrie's charisma, but we seem to always have machinists like turning pommels, doing little odd jobs, and heat treaters sneaking our blades in, where that would never happen. Simply because I think the romantic idea of being a part of sword making was cool to them, because they're just getting they don't even know half the time when they're like say a CNC shop, they just get a part number. They don't even know what the little lathe part they're doing, but they know they're making a sword pommel when they work for us. And this might be like under the table cash deals sometimes. Do you guys find some of that, or is it more by the book stuff?
So by the book in Utah so far, but in here in Tampa, when I bring my blades to Broad Out Metallurgical Retreat here, they love them. They're like, they'll run around the shop with the sword in their hands, like, so they definitely kind of help. Like, so they'll say, okay, we have a 5160 batch running at this time, so we'll squeeze you in there.
We'll sneak you in there.
Yeah. So it's super helpful.
With mine, it's mostly been time. I'll come in, and chat with people, shake hands and schmooze, and they'll be like, "Hey man, we got a month wait, but we'll get you out in a week because this is cool shit."
Yeah,
that's Josh's charisma.
Josh
has the
charismatic. Absolutely. 1000%.
And all of them are rad. It's all like, I'm gonna have to check out your Instagram, which is funny because a lot of the people that happens with, they also become customers. They're like, "Oh, that's really cool that we're helping you out with that. Where can I buy this from?" Sure. And it's like, cool. I'll give you a discount for helping me out.
And one thing that I just recently learned is, so Josh in Utah, like now that we're in this crunch, he actually is bringing on help. So he's able to reach out to the community and bring on help, because apparently everybody in Utah is a knife maker. And so like he just said, "Hey, I need a grinder," and then bing, like 5 people say, "Hey, we can grind for you." It's like, that doesn't happen here in Florida.
No.
So apparently like Utah is a very, very large knife making state. So
in the 1950s, like Utah was a hotbed of knife makers. Everyone and their mother made knives out of everything. And it hasn't stopped. There's still a ton of knife makers out here. There's nowhere near what there used to be. But everyone from Utah that's been living in Utah for the rest of their lives, or for their entire lives, has some kind of background in some kind of metallurgy, where they've, "Oh yeah, I used to grind blades all the time," or, "Oh, I used to pound railroad spikes into knives and give them to my children," that kind of weird stuff. So you can throw a rock and that, and archery. Every person I drive by has an archery target in their backyard.
That's true.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, but that's not the case here in Florida. It's like, so I'm looking for help. Like,
Chris, are you doing this full time?
No, still part time. Yeah, because I have the aerospace still.
Okay,
but but all of us here at Sterling, we're
for now
seriously debating going full time with everything. So
that's true.
That's
I've already made the leap.
One of those things I've tried to encourage. I'm sure every sword maker gets it, but like me, having put myself out in the public the way I have with YouTube and TV and all that stuff, like I get so many messages of people saying, "Hey, where should I start? I want to be a blacksmith. I want this to be my life. Like, I'm gonna do this full time." I'm like, "Oh no!"
Sure?
Like,
no.
please, like, I don't
know.
Ilya discourages people from doing it altogether, but I'm like, please make it your hobby, make it your side hustle, if you will. And if your side hustle gets successful enough to become your main hustle, then good on you. But like,
Right.
it is really like, Chris, I've known you since 2008, maybe something like that. Maybe
I think
maybe
so.
a
Yeah,
little
7
before
years.
that.
Yeah.
So, how many years is that? 14
Mhm.
years?
Yeah.
Something like that. Is that good math? Something like that.
Somewhere around there.
Look how long it's taken you to get here. Like it is not quick. And even if you're the most talented person,
Yeah.
you
Right.
also have to be talented business wise.
Yeah.
Like the charisma thing, you either have to be charismatic or you have to hire people to work your sales department, whether it's online sales or Renaissance sales or trade show sales, whatever. You have to have so much to be successful in the business aspect that I just try to encourage people to keep knife making and blacksmithing as a hobby and make that transition when you're ready. Don't force it.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of what
Yeah.
we've been doing. So, and Josh and I and Colton and even Thomas, we've all talked about it at in depth. Like, and the concern for a while was if we do it full time, does that take the fun away from it?
Absolutely.
Now it's you rely on it now, so it can or it can't, right? So it depends on where you're at in your life, and
Yeah.
I still like my normal job, so I'm not ready to leap out of it yet.
Sure.
But it seems like it's coming pretty soon, and we're also at a point now where, and we kind of weren't sure. So last year we went to Combat Con, and we sold everything the first day, right? And then we had Sarasota Medieval Fair, and we could not keep stock in. Like stuff was just gone. I've made more than I've ever made, and we couldn't keep the booth stock. So the last weekend of the show, we had no swords left. So
we had two swords, and we had one. We had packed everything down.
Right.
We had
last one is $18,000. Why? Because it's the last one.
Yeah. So we brought
That's
a bunch
why.
of mead, and we became
Yeah.
a drinking tent. Just come and
Yeah.
drink,
Yeah.
So we're like, well,
I do miss doing shows a little bit. I do a little bit about
I
it.
love shows. That's
been
my
a
favorite.
long-
You should come out to Sarasota
And
do it
by
with us.
shows, I mean Ren fairs, and really like the
Yeah.
Florida crew was so good to me. I made so many friends so fast there.
Yeah, it's a great crew in Florida.
Yeah.
And all the different shows too. And now Florida has so many different shows going on. So the question is that demand real, or is it an artificial inflation because everyone got off COVID and now they have lots of money to spend?
I mean, I think it's real. Like I said, we shorted at BKS. We shorted every wish list by a third, man.
Yeah.
There was always a third more that would have sold, and I don't really know what those guys do so much these days, but I can tell you it feels real, and an economy that shouldn't be good enough right now for people to buy swords. They're still freaking buying them.
Yeah.
So,
and the other,
I'm kind of out of that loop, but at the same time, like.
The other cool thing is, so Hema is becoming huge, right? And that's and that market alone, most of that market is from European makers, right? So like
that, and with every passing year, swords and swordsmanship and martial arts, it's so much less of like a sub culture and so much less of the nerd culture. It's it's more and more mainstream. Like, if you don't really think about it, how many movies do you watch these days that have a sword or an axe or something in it? Like,
most of them.
Many.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So many.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's become it's not a weird thing anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And part of it is just like the work you guys did with Man at Arms, like you guys bringing it to the public attention. I've got friends who didn't even know I did this stuff that have no knowledge of it. And they're like, oh yeah, I watch that all the time. And I'm just like, you know I do that, right? And they're like, oh, that's really cool. Can you make me a sword? And it's favorite question.
Every time.
For that, that, and then Forge and Fire really brought a lot of stuff as well. And so the other cool thing, so we have the Hema Market, which is new, and I love that. I love all parts of that. I love doing Hema stuff. I love competing. I love sparring, and we actually have a new sparring blade we're dropping at Combat Con this year, which is going to be fun. And sparring blunts are a whole another thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's a whole group that make it, but the focus is on fetters, but they don't really focus on sparring swords. They just, everything's fetters, and so that's a whole another thing. And then I found a lot of museums now are becoming customers because a lot of museums, especially in England, like the Royal Armories, they have a reenactment group at the museum, and so they want to have the reenactors use pieces that are replicas of pieces in their museum. So you fly out to the museum, you get the piece they want to make or want to use, and then you're able to go behind the scenes and study it and measure it, and then hopefully make some that those reenactors can use that are very as close to the original pieces you can get.
Yeah, man.
So that's a pretty cool market as well, and something I didn't even think of 5-6 years ago. So but now it's like, wow, like it's becoming a bigger and bigger thing, so it's really exciting.
Yeah, it's interesting when you say that like swords used to be like a subgenre, like it was very particular, but now swords and martial arts weaponry are so widespread. Even the main umbrella of swords has so many different subgenres now.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You got the blunts, you got the fighters, you got movies, which are plentiful now. You've got sharps collectors, you've got museum collectors, you've got it's crazy how much fire it's been set.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's exciting.
So it's a wild thing, and like what you said before, you're worried, like if you went full time, like would it become more of a burden and lose its fun? Yeah, sometimes it did for me. I mean, I worked really hard. I'd say like in my 22 years that I worked at Bar and Knife and Sword, like it felt like a lifetime. Like I honestly feel like I'm living my retirement right now. And I know that like freaks some people out. It freaks some people, but those 22 years were like 35 years for anybody else. They were intense every day. It's not to say I didn't have some days where I like sloughed off a little bit, but it was really hard days. And some days I wouldn't say I ever hated it. I worked with my brother and I worked with guys, and just being that close to the same people every day under high stress situations. Sometimes like there's some things here and there, but I always kept in the back of my head, like, dude, so many people would kill to be doing what I'm doing.
Right.
And it truly is the case. Like every customer, every like computer nerd, every single one of them wishes they could drop the keyboard and pick up a hammer. They all wish that, and it's just not a reality for most people. And you get to live that. It's a perspective, like, in a way, I look back and I go, man, I wish I would have stopped and made nicer things earlier on. But it just was an outlet. It was an amazing thing. I worked at like one of the biggest producer of swords in the Western world, and for a long time, and basically a full career, and not just work there. I mean, I was co-owner of it, so like I got all the different aspects of it, and it taught me a lot, and I made a lot of friends, and for the early part of my career, the first like 2/3 of my career, I'd go home, shower up, put fresh clothes on, make sure that when I went out, no one could ever tell I was a sword maker. Now you can kind of see I've pretty much embraced it, and I hardly, every shirt I own has, spark holes in it and stuff. It just is a way of life. I'm not in denial anymore. And it's wild. It's wild. And now I'm actually like involved with more of the blacksmithing end of it. And it's kind of like weird. It's like I'm still in the same career, but I'm like two sides of the same coin. And it's neat. You can always reinvent yourself, guys. Like in the business, if you got really sick of it, you can literally go, all right, I'm just going to make one really nice piece this month. And, if you build up the clientele, you actually, you can pay for your life that way too. So it's interesting. There's so many facets, and I promise you won't get bored with it, because
that's good.
There's always another culture to learn, and always even just subsects of the same culture. Like if you just break it down with German swords, many different ones, that there's always something fresh to learn. And that's one of the things that's the biggest thrill of this is 5 years in, 2 years in, 24 years in, like me, like just take for instance my Journeyman Smith journey. Like I just had the most intense learning experience of my entire career happen at the twilight of my career, if you will. It's pretty wild. Like it's just so much to learn. So
Yeah.
you shouldn't get bored. That's for sure.
Yeah. So what's funny is so because we only do mainly the stock removal stuff, mainly the grinding stuff, like a lot of the guys really want to do some forging stuff. And I was telling them, like, man, that's a whole new world. So
it is.
So hopefully we can get everybody up to like a hammer in or one of the other big events.
Well, one of the things like for doing Renaissance festivals, if you just start making like that medieval blacksmith knife, basically that everybody makes, just a knife. Yeah. The shoulder comes up, you draw out that long taper, twist it up, and do like that little shape of the handle.
Yeah,
that's a nice Renaissance festival item that you can sell, $50 to $75, and it teaches you a lot of the skills you need to progress. So you're kind of getting paid for practice. So I encourage people to do little knives like that for you guys or anybody. It's a good starting spot.
The
or
other
kunai.
Cool thing,
I know Josh made some kunai.
Yeah, Josh loves doing kunai. Yeah.
Oh my God, they're almost too good of a color. No. While I was working 9 to 5, I had the foresight to put back a fraction of my paycheck, every paycheck, into a fund that would just be buying material, getting it laser cut, getting it heat treat, and then putting it downstairs. So if ever, unfortunately, I would be let go, I'd be like, cool, I'm just going to go into my shop, and now I've got an infinite amount of blades to work from. I say infinite, finite, but still too many. So I still have quite a bit of kunai ready to go. But yes, it's like you said, where Matt, a while ago, where you're like, that's like 3 days worth of grinding right there. If I grind that out in 3 days, they sell out in an hour, and then I'm like, crap. I've got the problem of too successful. I have to jump on it and just get more made.
That's another thing too. I got it. Like, this is something that me and my brother fought about for years, and this is just advice for you guys. We should probably talk more off air about this stuff, but supply and demand is real. Like, if you guys truly are selling out super quick, you gotta raise those prices a little bit. Like, don't burn out. Don't like you mentally might not burn out, but your joints and your fingers and your elbows. I had a real bad bout when I first left BKS of tendonitis that I could not get rid of just from the years of grinding big long sword blades. As soon as I left that and tried to jump right into forging, my elbow just like completely blew out. Not blew out, but tendonitis, and it was awful. So like, don't do that. Raise your prices a little bit.
So we were at Comeback Con. I posted, so was this last year or was it the year before? I can't remember. I think it was last year. But we posted all of our blades for Combat Con on a couple of the online forums. And then I started getting messages from a lot of other makers like, how much are you charging for those? You need to raise your prices.
And it's wild because I haven't done that work in a while, going back and looking at what other people are charging now. It is a lot. And I was like, don't worry, we're raising our prices. I get a little bit of the itch to jump back in to make some production pieces, and Illy and I talk about it all the time about doing a production run of stuff. It's tempting, but it's also really nice to make one $20,000 item.
Sure. Absolutely.
Like I said, I feel retired from the production end of it, but
so we're still at a point where we're kind of doing what BKS does. We're doing like a quasi production. We are making lots, but we don't have a set product. Like, every piece we make is still one of a kind. So
I like that.
So that kind of that keeps us fresh. Yeah, that keeps it very fresh, because I find that if I do start doing, like, if I need to do 10 of one thing, I start getting pretty bored with it. Right. Yeah. So I'm always changing it up. So that keeps my interest in it.
Yeah, and even for BKS, like when we get those wish lists, it might say 10 hand and a halves. And sometimes we'd be like 10 hand and a halves. I got a lot with wheel pommels, so please switch up the pommels. But that it would be like, it's kind of in my hands, just in the grinding. Like, maybe I'll full grind this one. Maybe I'll
Right.
Put a
Yeah.
extra scoop at the top for ricasso, make it a little fantasy. Maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do that, maybe I'll extend the fuller a little bit, maybe I'll make it 31 inches instead of 32, grind a little bit of the point off. So
Right.
keeping it fresh like that is nice. It's not necessarily as a business model the absolutely best thing to do.
Right. Right.
But,
Exactly.
Yeah.
if you're thinking production, but you
Yeah.
guys are kind of semi-production, which is
Right.
kind of a healthy balance, I think.
I'd like to get to a point where we do both because we're not as young as we used to be. I remember, of course, even like 5 to 10 years ago,
Mm.
I had no limit to the energy I could expend, and my muscles and joints were fine doing whatever I threw at them. Now I'm like, oh, something's popping in there that I don't like, or oh, that weird thing in my elbow's back.
Yeah. Well,
I'd like to take what limited amount of energy I have, put it toward really high end stuff, while I teach someone how to do rough grinds and put together a production line of quick, fast swords. They're still
Absolutely.
great quality.
And that's
behind those too.
And it's also hard, it's y'all's name on it. So like pulling in somebody less experienced, like the quality control becomes a thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
I experienced that at BKS, just training some new people we just had to bring some people on. Not everybody can do it at a high level.
We're very, very picky.
Honestly, it's why for the longest, anything that I made, I wouldn't put Chris's stamp on it because it's like I'm not the same quality as Chris.
Right? Yeah.
And
there's
then
a few where I
Chris's
was
name
like,
to it.
I was like, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Do it behind my back.
So you got to make the decision. Like, do you want to end up being the guy that comes behind and touches up everybody's work, or like, are you going to make a really definitive line? Like, hey, this is, the War Bear line where I'm doing my thing, and here's the 3 items that we're releasing for 2022 that are going to be production. And you label them as such, and somehow you make this is the Dark Horse line or whatever you say it is, and make a real definitive line between those two, and that can work too. That can work as well.
Yeah, we've been talking about that a little bit. Different lines that put towards different, trying to cover the entire arms of the squid of sword players. You know what I mean?
What's fun is what's great about our whole crew here is I'm in love with the museum historical stuff. Josh loves the the fantasy Lord of the Rings style stuff. Thomas kind of
historical fantasy. It's called historical fantasy.
And then Colton has his own thing. So we all have a different area of the sword world that we like. And,
right.
So it's been fun because I'll throw out an idea, and then everybody else will have a slightly different take on it, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you evolve.
Yeah.
Like when I started working with my brother, he was very white bread about his designs, very plain, very like I wouldn't call him historical, but at least in silhouette historical.
Sure.
And I came in like a crazy 15-year-old that I was, and just ground scoops on everything, and points all over the place, and went crazy fantasy, and I hated fantasy. Yeah, very almost Kit Ray-esque. There's not much. You can't go quite that crazy.
Right.
What I had to work with. But the BKS slasher, that was one of my last fantasy designs that I really did as a production run there. And now I almost can't stand that stuff. I don't necessarily want to be the guy reproducing stuff out of a museum, but I do like to put myself in the mindset of a historical smith from the time, and kind of make my own design in the parameters that they would have been working under. I enjoy that.
That's what I like as well.
So maybe this part of this sword, this part of that sword, and then throw my own flair in there. That was kind of always my thing towards the end, and definitely now it's now I'm approaching this, maybe I'll become a master smith. I'm going to go for it, where you have to pay homage to the makers that came before you, both hundreds of years ago and just modern American knife making. But you also are highly encouraged to develop your own art. So we'll see if I get there or not.
Yeah. I think you wouldn't have a problem at all getting there. Actually, has anyone done a Because I know I asked about swords for Journeyman, but has anyone done a sword for Mastersmith? Did Kevin do that? Or
I mean, maybe there's been some like 20-inch
Sword-ish.
hunting sword almost
Right.
thing, but no, it's really they really don't want to see swords in your test
Okay.
set stuff at all.
Yeah.
But maybe I
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to do anything. Once you put that much work into it, just like the JS thing, it's not just about honoring and not showing off. Once you put that much work into your set, you almost are like all those things where you're thinking about taking all these risks in the beginning. Those risks become like way not worth it once you put all of that in. Yeah.
I
Right.
bet. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Well,
awesome.
guys, look.
Yeah,
I know it's not my
yes.
job to wrap this up, but
I was about to say
we
we're
have
about
so
to wrap
many
up.
subtopics that we could probably
Yeah.
do this forever. So let's do
Yep.
it again sometime real soon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
I'd
Maybe
say
we'll make-
let's do the normal sword talk we do, and then just bullshit sessions every other week or something like that, or once
Yeah.
a month. So we just
Yeah.
disguise
Let's-
what we want to talk about.
Well, let's close this one out here because we're at an hour and a half. So, real quick, let's Matt, where can everyone find you at? And we're gonna have all the links below in this video.
Yeah.
So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see everything below.
Yeah,
So-
my YouTube is That Works on YouTube, and pretty much social media is you just search my name, you'll find it. I'm at Matt Stagmer on Instagram. I don't do much on Facebook anymore, but yeah, Instagram and YouTube are my main places.
Awesome, Thomas.
Very similar. I don't do Facebook. I don't do social media. I don't have my own page.
Yeah.
If you really want to get a hold of
Come
me,
to
just go to the Sterling Armory page, and Chris will forward it along to me, and I'm more than happy to talk to people there.
And then Josh.
Very dissimilar to the last two. I'm all over Facebook, Instagram. Facebook, you can find me at Joshua Von Warbear. Instagram, you can find me at Dark Archer Design. You can basically Google Joshua Von Warbear and find me anywhere. My OnlyFans is still under construction. They got to figure out some stuff.
He's got a family though, so don't be afraid to go to that site.
Yeah. No.
And then all of us can be found at myself, Josh, and Thomas. Not Matt. Will be found at Sterling Armory on Facebook and on Instagram. And eventually we'll have a website. So we're still throwing out the, if anyone wants to help with the website. Feel free to come help us out.
Yep.
Louise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's been the Sword Talk number. I think it's 11. And again, thanks to Matt for coming and helping us. Joining the chat.
Yeah,
And,
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah. Thanks for coming, and hopefully we'll have you back sometime. And until then, you guys, if you have any comments or questions, please put them below, and we will catch you on the next one.
And like this video before you go. Like the video.
Oh yeah,
thumbs it
I
up.
always forget.
Help it get out there.
Like and
Thumbs up.
subscribe. The subscribe
Like,
notification.
subscribe, hit that
What's our
notification
closing
bell. or
remark?
whatever.
Hit the bell. Ding ding.
Yeah, Josh. What's our closing remark, Josh?
I've changed it. It's there's always hair on the south end of a bear unless there's not. Is that better than keep?
And then to keep
Is
your
that-
beans clean.
Is that better than keep the bean clean or worse? I still have.
I'm gonna go with worse because at least keep your
Yeah.
beans clean
Yeah.
is like sort of adjacent.
It was that, or it was like a house is only as good as a screen door. I wrote a bunch down that I was drunk the other day, and none of them obviously make sense. So,
Oh,
All right,
man.
guys.
so
have a
keep
good
your
night.
beans clean. Yeah.
Stay
Yeah.
sharp.
Thanks,
Have a good night,
guys.
Stay sharp's a good one.
Stay sharp.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.